Einblicke, which we host at the Museum for Kunst and Gewerbe, so the Applied Arts Museum in Hamburg in Germany. And thank you all for being here. And especially I'm thanking Nadine for being here, and not only for being here and taking the time to talk about her work, but also for donating the work to the museum. And yeah, I'm very happy that you're willing to give this talk, because for me, it's super important to capture the voice of the designers along their work, talking about the process, about the thoughts behind it. And this is also the reason why we are recording the talk. But don't worry, everybody, like we're recording only Nadine and the presentation. So you can either have the camera on or off, whatever you prefer. And to give you a brief orientation, Nadine is going to talk for about 45 to 60 minutes. And after that, there's time for your questions. And of course, you can enter your questions in the chat all the time. And either I will read them out loud or you can post them later. And for those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Julia Mehr, and I'm the head of the Posters and Graphic Collection at the MKNG, and also curator at the house. And one of my most exciting tasks is to expand the collection of posters of graphic design. And I think I was in love with Nadine's work already in latest 2012 when we did this book, Women in Graphic Design. This is when I she already has a bio in there. And so when I started this position here, it was clear to me that I would love to have your work in the collection. And I remember all the beautiful talks that we had, and I'm happy that with this talk, everybody can listen in. And yeah, so thank you. And also I want to thank the Stiftung Hamburger Kunstsammlungen, which is a foundation supporting acquisitions at the museum. And because Nadine really did put a lot of effort in also commenting her work and putting it together. She got a small amount from this foundation, which I think is like, you deserve much more, but I'm happy that we can do this gesture. And yeah, so I think this is what you need to know from my side. So Nadine, the screen is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, and thank you for the Museum for Kunst und Gewerbe Hamburg for the invitation to give the talk, but two also for I don't even have the adjectives, and I should have prepared, but it's an unbelievable honor to have been invited to contribute my work to the museum. And so yeah, so today I have my dog next to me. I think at some point she's going to interrupt, and so I will show you the dog as well, so that we can see that. It's also really nice that we are in a meeting format, so I can see my friends in the setup. Anyways, so let's begin. So again, thank you for also everyone who's with us today. This is really great. I will share my screen and then we start. So yeah, so today the talk is about sort of looking back at my 20 years of type design, and hopefully this is more a midpoint view, not a backward view only. So I will continue to design. I think that's important, because I had the title Reflections, and it looked like I finished my career, and I hope to God, no, I have not finished yet. There's still a lot to do. Anyway, so that's where it is. And it's I went for 20 years because it's been 20 years since I graduated from my master's in type design, which is when I really started my career in type design. And I was employed afterwards, right after in the teaching of type design and then in type design projects. But the story begins a little bit earlier, and actually 25 years ago, when I took the Arabic typography class at the American University of Beirut with Samir Sayed, who is my mentor, and he's this amazing calligrapher and teacher and art critic and an author and philosopher. He's really a Renaissance man, and it was one of the pivoting moments in my life, because and I really need to start here, because this is when I became interested in Arabic letter forms, and for many reasons. One, because at the time we had I was studying graphic design, and we had such poor Arabic typefaces that whenever we wanted to design with Arabic typefaces, there was nothing that would really look good. And it almost felt that that is a reflection on us as Arabs and as on our language as well, and on our culture. And that was not okay. But at the same time, it was also inspiring because of the beauty of the Arabic calligraphy and the letter forms and that heritage that we had that made me feel proud of something that we have in our history as Arabs. And I had grown up in Lebanon in the middle of a civil war with very little to be proud of in terms of history because of how just the bloodshed, basically. So it was really nice to connect with part of our history that was just invigorating and exciting, and my interest was really piqued by the early Kufi, and I saw a lot of modernity in those forms that were written 1300 years ago, and so that combination of inspiration and the support of that mentorship and such an amazing teacher, and then the need, the desperate need for Arabic typefaces, it all was the perfect storm to create a lifelong interest in Arabic type design. And so that's where things really started. It took a while for me to graduate from AUB. I was not a good graphic design student. If it were not for type design, I would have left. I really considered leaving in that spring because I was doing so much better in my accounting course, and I thought I'm better with numbers than with design. And I almost quit if it were not for this course. And so, yeah, and then that's that. The rest is history, as they say. Anyways, so that's where it really started. It took a few years, and then I went to Reading, and I started really the journey from Reading when I started working on my typeface Kufia. And so I've designed quite a lot of typefaces in those 20 years. I obviously will not show you everything, but I would like to start with the typeface that piqued my interest in this conversation that we can have between the West and the Middle East. It also started even in the year 2000 when Edward Said gave this graduation speech at my university, and he talked about the dialogue of civilizations rather than the clash of civilizations. And this is something that stuck with me for always, that it's okay that we are different, and even in spite of our differences, we can live together in harmony and to have dialogue with one another without needing to kill one another and without needing to become the other as well, that we can respect those differences. And all of these factors sort of came in together and inspired the same look towards type design as Edward Said was speaking, as how we could perceive the West as Arabs today. And so with Kufia, I was looking at this dialogue between Arabic and Latin. We had not had any typeface designed by the same person at the same time with the express purpose of harmony between Latin and Arabic before this typeface. There was one example of a typeface that had two, so Latin and the Arabic, but they were not designed at the same time. It was the Latin, and then later Arabic was added. And that was a very different way of working, because you sort of, when you design both at the same time, you come from both sides and then you meet in the middle, and you take design decisions that are respectful of both, so that you don't force design decisions on one script because you have already taken them in the other. And so it was quite important to start there with Kufia. And Kufia, I finished the master's version of it in 2003, but it was released in 2007. And the entire purpose of the typeface is to have the same look and feel, to have the same harmony, to feel that they are talking with one another, coexisting on the same page without conflict. The style is inspired by the early Kufi, obviously. It took a very long time for me to be able to find this sort of balance between the two. But yeah, this is it. And this look of Latin and Arabic and this dialogue between them was something that I took into my career up until today. So I'm sort of known for that in a way, that I look at the dialogue between Latin and Arabic and get them to speak with one another without the Arabic becoming Latin. And that's very important. And without Latin having to become Arabic, which obviously never happens anyways, but it's important that the Arabic remains true to itself. And so in the right after graduation, I went back to Lebanon. I was teaching, and then I got this project for the American University of Beirut, which was using Frutiger in its signage system and needed an Arabic typeface. And so they asked me to design that. And at the same time, I was already offered a job by Bruno Steiner, the managing director at the time of Linotype. And so I wrote to him because I knew I was going to go do a training with them. And I asked, can I do this? And he said, yes, let's do this officially. It can become Frutiger Arabic. We get the blessing of Adrian Frutiger, and you can go ahead and you can do this. And so I started working on it in 2004, continued into 2005, and then eventually we released it in 2007. Until this day, this remains my most popular and widely used typeface, even though I now look at it, I mean, it's been a long time. I see so many things I would like to change, and I changed them in the Neue Frutiger Arabic, but obviously, if I drew it now, I would do some things a little bit differently. But with Frutiger Arabic, again, it was a milestone. The same way that Kufia was a milestone, Frutiger Arabic was a milestone in type design in general in Arabic, because we didn't have at the time an Arabic typeface that could signify being contemporary, used on signage, as Frutiger was intended, and Frutiger Arabic as well, to be used on signage, to feel professional and modern and just belonging to this day and age. And we didn't have a stylistic reference that could do that. The Kufi style in Arabic couldn't. It was too stiff. The Naskh style couldn't, because it was a little bit still too organic and too much movement. It needed to calm down. And so I started this hybrid between the two different styles in Arabic and to come into the middle. And this is where Frutiger Arabic was born, and many other typefaces retain this hybrid approach between Naskh and Kufi, which is also sort of a signature of some of the typefaces that I've designed. And so again, the intent here is to remain with the Arabic look and feel, but to be able to sit with the Latin and do the same thing the Latin does. Obviously, this presentation is not about how to design this, so I'm not going to go too much into the details, but if anyone has questions at the end, we can talk a little bit more in details. This is more the telling of the story. So it's a bit indulgent as well, because normally I don't sit and tell the stories of how I got to where I am or what I've done in life. That's a bit funny, but anyways. So yeah, and again, the purpose is that the typefaces do the same things, and Frutiger was meant for signage. It was designed for Charles de Gaulle Airport here in Paris, and the Arabic was originally also designed for the signage at the American University of Beirut, and then it has also been used at Dubai Airport, in Doha, in Qatar, and many other airports, plus many other instances as well as a typical branding typeface. But the intent was always to work on that signage and to be able to sit with the Latin and to feel as one big coherent system. So that was Frutiger Arabic. And of course, Bruno had wanted that that we make the typeface official, and so I know that Otmar Hofer is on. I saw him. Hi, Otmar. Thank you. Otmar took this specimen sort of sample page when he was visiting Adrian Frutiger in Switzerland, and he showed it to him, and we got his approval, and he signed it, and he wrote nice things. And of course, I cried when I read them, and it was, one of the biggest honors for me. And till this day, when you get one of the gods of type design to like your work. He even talked about it in another book that he published after, and he. Well, I'm just like, it sounds like boasting, but basically he said that this work has a touch of genius, and it's the nicest thing anyone ever said about me, and especially that it came from him. So it's really nice, and I will always be grateful for this. Yeah, for this honor and for the privilege of having been able to do that. I just wish I knew I could draw better back then, but in hindsight, what can you do, right? But it's a good typeface. It's not bad. It's just now I think I draw better by now. But anyway, yeah, and then when we designed this typeface, and by the time I was working at Linotype, and Linotype, of course, had the jewels of the type world, the Helvetica, the Frutiger, the Avenir, the Universe, Palatino, all of the great classic typefaces. They were all part of its collection. And when we released Frutiger Arabic, it was an immediate success. We actually had to release it early because clients were waiting for it. And that, because of that immediate commercial success, it gave the feedback to the foundry Linotype that yes, we need more of there is a demand, there is a thirst, because no matter how much we talk about the wish for more Arabic typefaces or Indic typefaces or any other script, it doesn't work unless there is a demand, unless there are people who are willing to pay for these typefaces, because otherwise it becomes an artistic exercise and you die poor and you can't do a lot. And so it was quite good to see that the market was reacting very quickly and very positively to the typeface. It also answered a question for me, because I wasn't sure if the style was too experimental, because there was nothing like now Frutiger Arabic looks normal, but at the time there was nothing that looked like it, nothing. There are design implementations, design features that I put in it that I had taken from NASC, other things I took from Kupi. That combination had never existed, and I didn't know if people will hate it or if people will not be able to read it, but somehow they did, and it was fine, and I could go on and design more within that sort of experimental view. And so the next step was to take on the giant, the Helvetica, and so the Neue Helvetica Arabic came out in 2010, and I still have a love-hate relationship with the typeface, and I have a love-hate relationship with Helvetica anyway, so I think that matches. The best version that I've seen, the best way it's been used, the Helvetica, is Sky News Arabia, because we made a special version for them and we adjusted some little things to make it work on TV. And then when they use it, I love it. When some other people, like, if it's not used right, it looks horrible. So there's a lot of Helvetica in that. But again, it was this quest to try to answer the question: what does a contemporary modern typeface look like in Arabic? And other than these two, obviously there were many others. There's the Universe, there was the Avenir, later on there was projects for Sony and what else. But one of the nicest things a client once said to me, I was in a presentation and I was showing them some examples of my work, and one of them just looked at me and he was like, I didn't know Arabic could look like this, you know? And that is the best validation that you can have, that your vision for Arabic is resonating with people who want a new vision, who want to be part of this century, you know, to be able to say we can be contemporary, we can be professional, we can be tech, we can be high tech, we can be industrial, we can be anything, entrepreneurship, all of it. We can be anything we want to be, and that freedom is what I was looking for, because it always felt before, when I was still studying in graphic design at AUB, and in the few years after, it always felt like we were missing the words to tell the story of who we are, because type is the voice of that language, is the voice of that culture. And when you are so limited in choice, and with choice, the only representation you have of something which is poorly drawn and very traditional, you do not have the space to express any other vision of who you are as a culture or as a person or as a brand. And that was the heart of the problem for me, that this is not okay. This lack, this inability to be anything but this traditional, poorly drawn, poorly spaced, barely working typeface. It could not be us. That could not be our future. And we needed, we needed it to be different. And so this is where all of these typefaces are coming in to solve that problem of the question of identity, of who we are as Arabs today, and how we want to speak about ourselves, and to have that possibility to have multitudes of expression. And there's been instances in you know, contemporary dialogue of Arabic type design where some people are like, this is how it needs to be, and then there will be another camp like, no, this is how it needs to be, and then there will be all sorts of sort of dueling of what is the vision of Arabic type design. And my solution was just draw all of them. We need all of them, and we need more. We need, like, don't waste time debating what style it needs to be in. Just draw all of them and see what works, and see what resonates with people, because in the end, we're all that we are doing is allowing expression. And if an idea catches, and if a typeface becomes popular, it's because it's resonating with something that people want to say. And that is why we are here at the end of the day, to allow that communication and that visual communication to take place. And so this is again that part of line of thought of why we design, and why I design. And there is dialogue between Latin and Arabic. In every typeface I've drawn, when I've drawn this, I've tried to take a slightly different solution. So it's not always the same, because I didn't know what is the right solution at the time. I just didn't, because it hadn't been done before. This is like 2010 or 2005 when I started, 2004 when I started putting in Arabic. There was nothing there was no answer. Now we have answers. Now we know what people like a little bit better, because it's been a while. But back then, so every time I took a different approach. And in Arabic, there's this, in Egyptian, there's this play by a very, very famous comedian, Adil Imam. And in one of the play, he was like, he always said, Ya Rabbi tigi fi aino. So like, I hope it comes in his eye, which is sort of like, basically you throw darts and you hope something sticks, right? And so with every different typeface of all of these Arabic plus Latin companions, it was like, Ya Rabbi tigi fi aino with this one, you know, like, I hope that this maybe is adding to how we understand this dialogue between them, because you try, you speak into the void, and at some point, you know, the void sticks back, if that makes sense. So because also the process of type design it's speaking to the void, because you release the typeface and then it's out of your hands, and then you don't know if the typeface is resonating. It takes many years for that echo to come back to you, and in that time you have to keep designing. And so each time I try something different, and I hope that it sticks. So this was the Helvetica Arabic. Another project, this is again from my linotype years, which were very formative for me, definitely, when as a type designer, because I had the privilege of working with the two gods in type design, Adrian Frutiger and Herman Zapf, and it could not have been nicer in that sense. So when I first joined Linotype, Bruno again, and introduced me to the Professor Herman Zapf, and then we got to meet, and he had drawn in Arabic in the 50s for Al Ahram newspaper in Egypt, and he was like, let's revive that, let's add it to the Palatino Nova family, and let's work together. And of course, like, I wanted to die from happiness, because, like, my God, he was 60 years older than me. He has the sharpest eyes that I think any human has ever had. Again, a legend, a god, really, in type design. And I got to sit next to him and like see how he looks at type, because like with Adrian Frutiger, I the colleagues took my work to him, and I didn't have a working relationship with him. He just approved things, which was great, but I didn't get to sit next to him and to design together. And with Professor Zapf, it was different. We visited him at home. He came to the office, and we would sit and we would design together, and we would draw, and I learned so much. I learned to draw how he draws, and I could not have had a better teacher to draw curves than Herman Zapf. And it changed my ability in type design, because I sat next to him and I watched how he analyzes the curves, and he would explain it to me. Because like one time I was trying to draw something and I just couldn't manage it, and then he came, was like, okay, put the dots here, let's look at it like this, and then try now, and then it worked. And so that passing of knowledge of it was very formative, and definitely one of the biggest honors that I had. And so we had worked together on Palatino Nova Arabic, and then the actually it was called Palatino Arabic, but it sits with Palatino Nova. I got the trademark wrong, sorry. We also worked on Palatino San Arabic, and we also worked on Zapino Arabic, which I will show in a second. So we worked on 3 projects together over a span of 10 years. And again, the typeface here took a very different approach than the Latin, because this was a book face. It needed to read as a book face. And so it was less similar in formative qualities when you look at the forms, but when you look at how the typeface performs, then it is similar. So it was always function before form. When you are looking for a monolinear type of design, so with an equal thickness almost all around, you can get closer in shape. The more mechanical the shapes, the closer they are in Latin and Arabic. But But when it comes to a serif typeface with contrast, when it comes to a book face in Arabic based on naskh, you really need to stick with what people are used to reading in books, because otherwise you disrupt the reading process. And so they can live together on the page, but they are very, very different from one another. And this is from one of our visits in Darmstadt with Professor Staff. It's one of my favorite photos. I really like the smile and the tulips as well. Another project, so the third one, I'm skipping Palatino Arabic, is a Fino Arabic, which was released in 2014. And with this one, I only have this one slide to show. It was almost an invented style, because there is no script style in Arabic that looks like this, that had the back slant that is similar to the forward slant. And normally I would have preferred to go forward slant, but because in this particular style, the slant in the Latin is so strong, the Arabic really needed to slant the same way. And so it wasn't possible to both have them forward slanting. So it slanted backwards, and we had nastalik, a style in Arabic that also slants backwards, but the way that the characters join with one another, the letters, is different logic. So this one is sort of a combination between nastalik and naskh, and so it's an invented style, and the whole point of it is to look as if Hermann Zapf wrote it by hand, but this style never existed, and he never wrote it by hand, but it's supposed to look like that. So it was, I always used to call it my Mount Everest. So technically, this was the most challenging. Also from a design point of view, the most challenging typeface I've ever designed. It's very, very difficult. And when you use it in a few words like this, I quite like that flow and the way it moves. And this is where I could tell that I'm drawing as he would draw, you know, because I had to learn to fake it in a way, right? Because it needed to look, because Zapfino is his handwriting style. So I needed to be able to make it look like it was his. So so here I'm jumping a little bit. So we're not clear in timeline, by the way. I'm just going thematically. So I'm putting all of my linotype and linotype monotype projects in one bunch, just thematically speaking. I've picked only 2 custom typefaces to speak about in this presentation. I don't want to speak about anything else. I've done a lot of custom work and lots of clients that I love. But there were 2 that were particularly special. This is the first of them, is Jubran 2005. It's for the An-Nahar newspaper in Lebanon. And it's, so this was in 2011. And it came about, I got an email from Mario Garcia, who was commissioned to redesign the newspaper because it needed a redesign. But also this project was carried over by the daughter of the chief editor of An-Nahar, who was assassinated in 2005. And she was, her name was Naila Twaini. And so she took over this project to as a statement that the press will not be intimidated by assassinations. And that was a message that I fully heartedly agreed with. Politically, we're not on the same page. I'm a little bit different, but when it comes to the freedom of the press, it doesn't matter if you agree or you disagree on politics. The point is to speak and to be free. And so this project, I designed the headline typeface, but I also worked on the design of the newspaper itself, is always very special for me, because for once I was able to go beyond the boundaries of type design and to be able to contribute to a national conversation in the country where I come from. And so it had a political dimension to it, and I'm very interested in politics. That's why I went to Cambridge to study later on. And so there is a sense of mission in this typeface. That's why I always choose this typeface as my favorite of all custom projects, because it was able to speak to a bigger cause that we need to fight for. And also because, and I was reflecting on this while preparing this presentation, because I don't always have the chance to like sit and look at everything that I've done so far. And I tweeted about this yesterday, that I now, after 20 years in the type world, I know what I am. I'm a font activist. It sounds funny, but everything that I have done, it was because of something in the status quo that I wanted to change, whether it is the lack of ability to express ourselves as contemporary Arabs, and hence their whole career in type design, the unhappiness with the status quo in the politics in Lebanon, and the string of assassinations that were happening, and this loud voice that wanted to say enough, and we are here and we will not be silenced. And then later on, I will continue around that theme. But this was the first time. It meant a lot to me to be able to do this project. And when I went to Lebanon for the first time to present, I just drew one sentence, and it's in Arabic, and it says "Ya Jabal ma yahzak rih," and it means the wind that will not, the mountain that will not be shaken by the wind, because that was the concept that I wanted to give to the typeface. That in spite of all political intimidations, assassinations, because they also assassinated not just the chief editor but also a chief journalist as well. They continuously under threat. That this is not okay, and we will remain. And so the typeface needed to be solid. It needed to be under control. It needed to be tense, but also it still needed to have the beauty of the Arabic letter forms. And so we still see that elegance of motion. We still see the difference between thin and thick based on how the pen has moved, but at the same time, everything is very solid and is under control, is under a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension in the typeface, and this is what gives it this really strong impact in the headlines. And so when you see the newspaper printed, the headline stands solid. It's very solid. It cannot be moved. That's the whole point. It's like stamped into the paper almost, and that's what I had wanted to do with this typeface. And this is one of the reasons why it feels so special to me. But the funny thing is, most of my typefaces, I'm usually quite experimental, and I'm doing hybrid styles and combining different things. With this one, I didn't do anything new. I just drew in a very tense and aggressive kind of way, a little bit, but it was just about the it wasn't about structural redesign or trying to come up with new solutions. No, it was just about take the existing headline style in Arabic for like newspaper headline style and just draw it in a very solid way. And so that's it's quite funny. You know, the other ones are a bit more original in terms of thinking. This one is more original in terms of drawing rather than the thinking. But still, I still love it. It's still one of my favorites. And I'm mentioning this twice because I worked with Mario Garcia on the layouts. So this particular one on the right, I actually designed that, including the croppings and everything with Elisab and and then Istanbul, let's meet tonight. And like I worked with him on the typography, and I also worked on the layouts. And it really made a big difference because it was nice, because usually I design the typeface and I give it to the client and I don't get to see how it's used. But in this one, I was able to set the typography and to decide on the size, the leading, the width column, and the column width, sorry. And that sort of made the typeface shine even more. And it even made the paper look lighter in color. But it wasn't that they didn't change the paper. It's just the layout changed. It had more white space and it felt lighter and more comfortable, and yet very solid with that headline. So that's why I am especially keen on that project. Another project that I'm super keen on for a slightly different way is the Dubai font, which was released in 2017. And this one was commissioned by the Executive Council of Dubai. This was by the time I was at Monotype UK. I had moved to London by then, and basically it was about designing a typeface for the city of Dubai, and it would ship with Microsoft Office, so it had to work within the Office suite of fonts, but also it needed to speak about Dubai itself, and it was important to catch or to be able to portray the vision of the city for itself. And I was always worried, you know, like they requested that I work on the project, and I did, and I was like, oh my God, maybe they want something very ornamental and I don't know how to do that. But they went for this very legible, very clean kind of design, and they went for the, you know, more contemporary looking version that I submitted. And the whole point of the project was to again have Latin and Arabic sitting side by side in harmony. Sort of reflecting the harmony that the many different nationalities in Dubai live with, and again, the Arabic and the Latin are very different from one another, but they can speak and live with one another. That's the whole point, to live together in spite of the differences. And here, I was not the only designer, so I type directed the project. I designed the first Arabic weight, and then I had two other designers work with me on it. And then the Latin I did not design, I only supervised. So we were a team of 6, basically, designers. And it was a really nice team to be able to all work together and to really push the typeface and make it what it is. But one of the reasons why I really love this project is not just that it was a very interesting and challenging project, but also because of the reaction of the people. So when this project was released in Dubai and the Crown Prince himself said, we now have a new typeface for the city went mad. It was amazing. Like suddenly everyone wanted to talk about the font. Like regular people started to love fonts. And it was like companies saying, we love the new Dubai font. It's going to become our system font, like our brand font. And then like KitKat, like this is like a tweet. It was saying, now it's time for all the other fonts to take a break. Because now the Dubai font is here, like it's amazing. It's like we didn't pay them; they just did this themselves. Like, and there was this sense of pride of like, look, like loving that we got our own font now, and like the whole city was proud that they have their own font. And suddenly type design went mainstream in Dubai, and everyone knows about the font. Everyone wants to use the font, and by now, like the universities, they tell the students not to use it because it's been used so much. But then they also, as part of the launch, they had these massive letters on the main highway in the city, and people were taking pictures with them, and it just became part of a national conversation. And I love when regular people love fonts. It just makes my day, because like fonts are addictive and there is so much power of expression in them, but it's almost like a hidden secret within the graphic design world of how much you can do with fonts. And I want everyone to love fonts, to know about them and to know how to use them, and to just take it mainstream and to let them have fun, let them enjoy, let them pose with big letters, right? Because at the end of the day, they're very personal and they speak to us, and it's our language, and it's just so nice when we can get excited about type and typography and with like regular people, so that's one of the reasons why I love this project so much, because it was just like the launch of it, and how the people reacted, that sense of pride and ownership was really nice to see. Okay, so now we're like jumping back and forth in the timeline. So another sort of bit of activism that I sort of went into is the PhD that I did at Leiden. So I graduated in 2012. This is my graduation. This is me with Anne Bessemans, and these are our, this is me here sitting for my defense, and there's my, my supervisors and all of that ceremonial aspect. And the project, the purpose of the PhD was to test the effect of the complexity of the word shape on reading in Arabic. We knew very little, we still know very little about the reading process in Arabic, but we do know that not enough people are reading, and even when they are reading, they're not reading enough. And we have a lot of unemployment in the region. We have a very young population as well. This is bound to explode in our face if we do not get the young population to be more literate. And by literate, I don't mean able to read, but reading as a regular pastime in order to educate itself, in order to keep educating itself, and in order to be able to build a thriving economy that can help it meet all the challenges that we have today. It is also the best way that we can do in order to counter the authoritarian regimes that we have all over the Middle East. We cannot get rid of them if people are not reading, if people are not enlightened. We cannot get equality for women if people are not enlightened. We cannot get equality for animals if people are not enlightened. We cannot get anything if people are not reading. And so if there is anything that we can do as designers to help the reading process, then we should be doing that, because at the end of the day, that is the only direct correlation between design and, at least in my view, design and societal impact, because everything starts there. If you want to start a company, if you want to innovate, if you want to have AI do work for you, all of it, it all starts with the intellectual curiosity and with reading, because that's how we take in information. And so I really wanted to study that. And so I designed a series of typefaces with varying levels of complexity. And then I took an eye tracker to Beirut and I tested with children, and I was looking at the effect of the complexity of the word shape and how that impacts reading. Obviously, I'm not going into the details, but basically it turns out that the more complex shapes take longer to read. So now it sounds very normal, but we didn't have that science to know that. And so here I'm overlaying in black is the more complex and the white is the more simple, where they sit side by side. And so it was good to know, obviously, that in the cases where we want people to read quickly, we give them typefaces that are simplified in style. But part of this project also changed my view of type design, because I completely fell in love with the complicated styles, the more dynamic, the more complex versions that are more similar to what you get in the manuscripts and in calligraphy. And I had never loved those styles before so much. Not really. That complexity, it was not for me. I like, even in how I wear things, I like simple things. I like plain colors. I don't like decoration. Now I do. But at the time it was like, too much movement. And then I learned to love that elegance and that flow. And it was like the combination of the time of working with Herman Zaff and then working on Effendim, the typeface, that sort of changed my view and expanded my worldview of where is the beauty in the Arabic script, and it sort of made me rethink even my approach to Arabic, and it sort of made it a whole richer experience for me. And so now I love to design in the Naskh style as well, not just in the Kufi. And you will see it in the new ones as well when I start to play and experiment. And so, for example, this was Effendim, the typeface. This was an installation designed for the Victoria State Library in Melbourne. And it always, like, I always show it because of what I say in it, that the typeface cannot be divorced from the environment it lives in. Typefaces give voice, and they also relate to where they live and how they speak, and we cannot change that relationship. And so for the next bit of the type design part, I know I'm speaking too much. I'm going to take a little bit longer than I planned. Sorry. So I left Monotype in 2018 to focus more on my studies at Cambridge, and also because I wanted to work on my own, and many other reasons as well. And a few years after that, I wanted to release a collection of typefaces. And of course, in 2020, by November, this was lockdown. And so I called it After the Fall, because of like just the impact of what was happening with the pandemic on all of us psychologically, that isolation, that separation. It had a heavy toll, and in this collection, I was exploring some quite heavy themes, but also I was having fun with some other typefaces as well. So, for example, this typeface I now absolutely love. This is Maqdisi. It's a contemporary branding typeface, but it looks so good, and the words look nice, and it flows beautifully, and I love it. And I also love the name, because Maqdisi is the name of the street where my dad has his office and where I spent so much of my life, and up until when I left Lebanon, and so it speaks at a very personal level to me, the name, but also the design that it's just when you set text in it and you want to read it and you want to stay with it, and the words look like logos almost, and it's just there's a cuddly aspect to it without looking childish, but there's that warmth to the typeface. So it is quite geometric, but there's a soul in it, and I react very well to that one. It's maybe because of the inspiration, I don't know, but it connects with me on a very, very good level. And then another typeface that was also part of that collection. So the collection was 7 typefaces in total. One with Umayma Lifta, I don't show it, it's not my design, but that was one of the collections. And then the other 6 were from me. I'm showing here only 4. This one was Amaridin, and Amaridin is like dried apricots, and I love the name, even though I don't eat them. And with this typeface is again also looking at that geometry and indulging in the Kufi geometric style, but still having something that feels very human. And this is why these typefaces speak so well to me, that because it just feels like I got to where I want to get to when it comes to Arabic, branding typefaces, that neutral, contemporary, but still very human. And for me, that's important. I don't like when we remove the human completely from type design. I still like to have words that you want to spend time with, and so this one does that, at least how I see it now. Maybe in 10 years I'll look at it and I will hate it, but for now I like it. And then, so the last two typeface designs by me that I will show is Kafa and Sawad. So these are part of a different way of looking at type design that I've started getting into in the recent years. So for most of my career, I had been designing typefaces that are meant to help brands express themselves. They are inspired by the need of visual communication in a contemporary world. And then this string of typefaces, and by now I have several, it's about typefaces inspired by human emotions. So Kafa is inspired by anger, Sawad is inspired by grief. I have a typeface that is not here because I haven't finished it yet. It's and I don't have a name for it, but it's inspired by heartbreak. And I'm currently designing a typeface inspired by the forehand of Carlos Alcaraz, so in tennis, because I love how he hits forehands. So, you know, but that's not human emotions, but at least the violence of it is human in that sense. And with this one, with Kafa, it was about anger. I started to design the typeface. Well, actually, I'm just going to skip. Ooh, I'm going to come back to this, but this was why I was designing it. Trump was coming to London in July 2018. It was his first official visit as president, and London was doing the best it can do to protest. They do it amazingly well. No one protests better than how they do it in London. And I wanted to join to say no to the lies. It says kafa kadiban, kafa karihan. So enough with the lies, enough with the hatred, because I was demonstrating against the culture of hatred that he sows, particularly in the Middle East, and the policies that he has pursued in the Middle East, and I am heavily against those, but also in the US and worldwide as well. And we've seen later what he had done after 2018, but even at 2018, it was pretty obvious what type of president he is and what type of person, and I wanted to demonstrate, and I wanted to design it in Arabic because he's a xenophobe, and so he wouldn't like that it is in Arabic. And also, when you want to say something that means a lot to you, when you say it in your native language, it means more. And so I wanted to speak in my language to tell him that I don't agree with his policies of hate. And so there I was, you know, demonstrating with that poster. And then, of course, I designed the poster. This was July, but in 2018, in November, there was the election. And I was like, okay, so I'm going to turn this into a typeface and I will give the typeface away for free as a way for me to make a statement. I am not allowed to vote in the midterm elections or any elections in the US, but they affect my life and I want my say. And so I designed this typeface and it's angry. The typeface is super angry. And I was tweeting all the time, like, guys, does this look angry enough? And that was what I wanted to do with the typeface. And so when it came time to release the collection, these were two posters that I had designed. One of them says Hurra in Arabic, means she is free. And then Hur is he is free. And so, and I wanted to just focus on the importance of freedom for women. That's why I wanted that overlay. And then the other poster, the one in blue, and it says أخشى ما أخشى أن تصبح الخيانة وجهة نظر. And this was a bit prophetic. It says the thing that I fear the most is that treason becomes a point of view. And after the events of January 6th, treason in the US has become a point of view, and that is very scary. And it's very scary when it happens in the Middle East as well, or anywhere. And then finally, like the last typeface, I don't like to speak about this. It's hard, it's grief. I cannot speak, but I prefer not to. But the typeface was meant to show the blackness. Sawad means blackness, and it needed to show just how black grief felt for me. And so this is a poster. It says to my dad. It was after his death. And I also, part of his, like the launch, I wanted, because we were all separated, it was the pandemic, there was lockdown, we couldn't speak. I wanted people to experience the typeface and to experience these posters. So I created this digital exhibit space where I could put in all the posters that I had designed and that Umayma had designed. So the ones that you see up here, this is for Lifta. And this is a picture of Lifta, which is a Palestinian village that was destroyed in '98. And this is her posters. So of the typeface Lifta. Of course, this is an amazing typeface. Umayma has won a TDC award for it. She's a brilliant designer. I love her. But anyway, so that's part of the exhibit, and then the rest of it is my work. And so this is like just looking around, and this is these are the main posters, and the black on black is on purpose. It needed to show the black and what I was feeling. These are for Kafa. So I was showing three typefaces only in this exhibit. And then this picture that we see over here, it's a 3D rendering of some of the letters of Sawad. And I would love to create an installation one day of this, because this was almost how I was imagining the letters to be. And if I were a person, I would be this big. I was this big, and this is how big the letters were in my head when I was drawing them, and it was all black. And that's the whole point of this typeface, to explore that blackness of grief, and to lose yourself in it, but also to come out of it at the end of the day. And it was quite a paradox that the letters look so beautiful when it's such a horrific feeling. But anyway, yeah. So finally, no, there's two more things, and then we finish. Speaking of horrific, again, I don't want to speak about this one so much. Yeah, so I think most of you know, so in August 2020, we had the big explosion in Beirut, and I obviously I was not there. I was in Holland, I was in Belgium when it happened, and then in Amsterdam, I can't speak, in Barcelona. And I wanted to do something because like half my city exploded. So what I did, I started this like fundraising project to bring together type designers to, yeah, just draw one letter. Some of them drew more in Arabic or in English, Latin, and that we make a typeface. So we had to fill up the main character set, so A to Z in Latin, and then Arabic as well, so the whole alphabet in Arabic, and to release it as a font, and to create things around it, and to fundraise. So the explosion happened on August 4, and 2 weeks later, this was out already. So because when horrible things happen, you have a very limited window of time to fundraise, because other horrible things happen and you are not able, people lose that feeling, you know? So we had to work very quickly. And in the end, if I remember correctly, 161 designers participated. And it was like this big global effort to design. And so we ended up doing this brochure that the whole project became called the like Letters of Hope, or Font Beirut. Beirut it's for Beirut. That's the meaning. It's also the name of a song. And so this brochure was about the collection of the glyphs that are in the font. And then we also did some postcards, and this is the back of the envelope. And these were printed in Beirut. And we had different fundraising levels, so you could either just get only the font, or you get the font and this printed material printed in Beirut. It was more expensive to print in Beirut, but we wanted that because that was the point of it, to say that Beirut is still alive and still able to print, because Beirut was always the printing address in the whole of the Middle East. They used to say Egypt writes and Beirut prints. so it was important to show that the presses are still running, and so we raised quite a good amount, and that was nice. And these are some of the postcards. So just some of the letters that the wonderful cohort of international designers designed. I was so touched by everyone's support. It was also therapeutic for me, because otherwise I would have been pulling my hair out seeing all the horrible videos. And so this kept me sane, sleep deprived and exhausted, but sane at least. And I think that's one of the values that design brings, that helps us process trauma. So that was good. We also did these posters, which I also really like. So this is like my favorites almost of the character sets, but we have so many more. The typeface is still available. If you go to ilovetypography.com, you can still license the font. It's $25, and we donate that one. So we still kept it, but no one is donating at the moment. So, but anyways, so that was that project. And speaking of I Love Typography, that was the last bit of activism that I had done. And this one is for my community of type designers and font engineers and everyone who works with fonts, because the state of the font business has been quite bad and continuously getting worse in recent years, particularly because of the company where I used to work. And I had seen firsthand in meetings and emails just how disruptive towards the health of our community their policies are. And I had tried to fight as much as I could while still employed, until I got to the point where I just couldn't, and I had to leave. And now I fight from the outside quite vocally sometimes, a bit more vocally recently. But one of the things that we were campaigning against is the monopoly when it comes to font distribution, because they have bought almost everyone, almost. and so when I came to release my after the fall collection, there was no place to distribute my fonts because they were all in the same company where I used to work, and going back to them felt like I would put my neck under the sword again, and that was something that I was not comfortable with. And so that's where the idea started, that we would expand the blog of I Love Typography, which is one of the world's most popular blogs. It had 500,000 Twitter followers. Everyone loves John Bordley, and he's now my business partner, and we work together every day. And we added font distribution in 2021, and we also added an academy to teach type design and font engineering and typography to people around the world in a variety of languages, so that we are able to break the geographic and linguistic barriers against the study that are, I always forget the right proposition. It's not against, but anyways, those barriers that people face when they want to study. And that font distribution store is really meant to support independent foundries, indie designers, and to really help us create a healthy, flourishing ecosystem for independent and creative designers to flourish in. Because if things continue the way they are, there will not be a font industry in 10 years. I am pretty sure about that. Or at least there will be very few people who are able to make a living from type design, at least in the Latin world. And so something needed to be done. And so that's where ILT came to be. This is now what takes most of my time. I design less because I work so much on ILT, and that is always the trade. And I will always want to design more, because in my heart, I am a type designer. But when my community is under threat, I feel that I need to fight. and so this is why I Love Typography is there. And so, it's a cute site. It works really well. It's a curated collection of the most amazing typefaces with independent designers. And we work with the foundries very closely to be able to see what can we do to be alive together, to work together, to have this healthy ecosystem, and to also help people, the users of type, to find fonts in ways that are helpful. And so there's a new type font, like a new descriptor system for how we talk about fonts is something that I worked on. It's one of the innovative aspects of I Love Typography. And yeah, and so we try everything we can to show people the beauty of fonts, but also to support the foundry. So we try to make this balance between, creatively inspiring the users of type, supporting the creators of type, and hopefully we all come together and can continue to flourish. And of course, I Love Typography is now the home of my own fonts. So finally, I have a font distribution solution for my own collection, and the phrase you see here and the phrase in the poster, for those who don't speak Arabic, it says بدنا نحكي بالعربي بالحمرا اليوم. Means we want to speak in Arabic in Hamra, the area where I grew up, today. And I always say that because I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but when I was very arrogant and young and I thought I will do everything, I had these amazing things that I wanted to do. And by now, knock on wood, I've almost done all of them. But I don't speak enough Arabic. And for me, that is always the one thing left. I want to speak more in Arabic. So I'm currently teaching Arabic type design in Arabic. And so I'm really happy about that. But I don't live in the Middle East anymore, and I don't visit often. And that is always the one, how do you say? Ambition left. I want to speak more in my language. But anyways, yeah, so that's it. And thank you. Thanks. Okay. So maybe I should also show you Charlie.
I will clap for everyone, but you can also.
And this is Charlie. Good. Yeah, sorry, I actually took the whole hour. But yeah, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Really, I don't think I ever teared up that often in a more scientific lecture. It was really moving. Thank you so much also for all the work you're doing. And you can, if you have time, look at the chat. Everybody's very enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And
oh my
really
God! Yeah,
appreciate your work.
Yes. Thank you.